Well, beyond that, breaking news. There's not much else happening in baseball because we are into day 33
Wow, already 33, huh?
of the owner's lockout. And yeah, today is the 33rd day.
It's been so quiet. It feels like it's only been a few days
Yeah.
because there's been nothing.
Yeah. It's, uh, there's, I mean, literally, there have been two meetings in that time between the Players Association and the owners. But they refused to speak of core economic issues. So they were talking about bullshit like the DH or not, whether they're going to have that, or maybe I doubt they even talked about expanded playoffs because that's definitely a revenue economic subject to bring up. So who knows what they were even talking about in the two meetings they did have. There are reported this afternoon officially 0 meetings scheduled in the future.
That's
So
good.
they won't be talking about anything. So the owner's stated reason for creating a lockout, as they chose to start the lockout on December 2nd, was to kickstart negotiations
Right. Yeah.
and that is 100% failed already. And they are showing no interest in actually doing that themselves either, as there are no meetings scheduled to talk. And as I said, we are 33 days into this. We are now 40 days away from the scheduled reporting of catchers and pitchers. Um, that is not in jeopardy as of this moment, but that's where the timeline starts to crunch and some urgency comes in, and these negotiations might be kickstarted. They don't have to be because there won't be massive revenues lost if they don't get started, get at least pitchers and catchers reported on time. There's a lot of speculation that February 1st through maybe the 5th would be a time where a deal could get done. At least they should be talking by then, because it's going to take about 10 days to 2 weeks to sort out the remaining free agent situation amongst all clubs before pitchers and catchers report and eventually spring training starts. So the league's going to want to have that. The leagues and the players are going to want to have that time to sort that out before things actually start. So that's where the February 1st through 5th speculation comes from. Until we see a goddamn meeting, I don't see any reason to think that's going to happen. Another reason to think that might not happen is because they don't really lose any revenues. Like I mentioned, there's if pitchers and catchers show up 2 weeks late, spring training is probably too long as it is. I don't know if they need 6 weeks to get things going. They can condense that, but if we get to March 1st, that's the date I think we're going to talk about going forward. That's where things get compressed to a point where they can't start the season on time. And that's where revenues are lost for both the owners and players. So that's where I think that's the real D-Day. The deadline would be May 1st, but you're going to hear a lot of talk about February 1st through the 5th, just to keep the current calendar intact. And I'm not sure if that's really going to happen. Do you see any reason why February 1st would be a realistic time that we'd actually have a deal done or talks necessarily?
Well, as of today, no.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm a
I
pessimist, so
feel like they went into the lockout basically with the idea like we're not even going to start talking about anything until after the first of the year. So if that's the idea I had, so I'm not saying you don't have to, obviously you can agree or disagree with that. So knowing that, I really first put the clock running on this thing, today.
okay.
Um, but if we don't see any movement, as in at least a meeting scheduled within the next couple of weeks, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, what are we
then
doing?
then what are we doing? And I
Considering
agree.
the
I agree with you 100%. I think March 1st is the true oh shit moment. That's the oh shit day, right? So as long as you can get something structured within the month of February to where
mm-hmm.
we can get where everyone can report by March 1st, we're fine.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, that's where I think the March 1st makes some sense, but it's still going to be a fucked up spring training. I mean, because again, you'd still need probably at that point a week to 10 days to compress the free agent period, which we saw they were able to magically do before December 1st. Their artificial previous deadline. And I don't know. I mean, so that puts you at March 7th at the earliest, that pitchers and catchers report. Then, you compress that. Can you even compress that? I don't know if you can for pitchers. They need their time to
I mean,
get their arms ready.
it could be like the start of the other compressed spring training where we saw pitchers only going 4 or 5 innings to
Yeah.
start the season. It wasn't until mid-season, well, or whatever you want to call that. It wasn't until later on that they started, extending their pitching. So
Well, and we saw how the league modified their approach to pitching in general this whole past 2021 season with, just 60 games being played in the previous year.
yeah,
A typical workload hadn't been done. They weren't building off 200 plus innings from the previous year. The most innings anyone pitched was under 90. So we've seen how they've been able to adjust. So they'll figure that part out. The part that they're going to have the hardest time figuring out is the economics of the new CBA. And since they're not even talking about it yet, I don't see how, magically, if they start talking on February 1st, it's going to be done by the 5th.
right. I mean, yeah, unless there's sidebar conversations occurring that aren't being reported on, but I doubt that's happening. So
Yeah, I don't think they're doing shit. So I guess we'll see. That'll be the crux of what we'll be talking about going forward. We spent a month between episodes for the first time in the history of Major League A-holes, but wasn't a whole hell of a lot to talk about. And kind of annoyed at baseball as it is, so I didn't feel like talking about baseball. So we'll see if their attitudes change or my attitude changes. Hopefully there's more shit to talk about in the coming weeks, but we might be another month before episode 91.
Word Hole Media.